game is set on a deserted island where players are stranded after a plane crash. The template contains basic controls like move, jump, pick up, and shoot, and made two floor variables that store normal walking speed and running speed. Then now the crouch action is made, but currently, if the player presses the sprint key while crouching. The Survival Island is a 3D 2-4 multiplayer game made with Unreal Engine 5. The game is set on a deserted island where players are stranded after a plane crash. The players have to gather resources, build shelter, and defend themselves from the dangerous wildlife to survive. The player's final objective is to find and destroy artifacts scattered around the islands. The symbols appear on the player's hand wrists relating to the player's color and the artifacts they have to destroy. There's a total of 6 members in the group, including 2 game developers, me, and another male student. We split up the development tasks like this. My very first task is to implement the movement of the player. Having said that, there's a little bit of a problem. I have about 6 years of experiences with Unity, but it was my first time touching Unreal Engine. Thankfully, there are plenty of Unreal tutorial videos on YouTube for beginners like me, so I didn't have much problem learning blueprints or widgets.
Spoiler alert, he is still watching the tutorials.
As the first tutorial, I referenced these 2 videos created by the same person, Smart Polly. I put a link in the description, big thanks. After that, I proceeded to make my Survival Island project. Unreal already has several templates fitted to start different game genres, like first person or third person. I decided to use the first person template, but later on, I imported the third person template as an asset for a reason. After the project was made, I test played the project immediately. The template contains basic controls like move, jump, pick up, and shoot. Although it doesn't have sprinting and crouching actions yet, so that's what I need to implement next. Out of unlimited supplies of tutorials from YouTube, I chose this tutorial that uses a first person character. I put a link to the old tutorials I've used in the description. We started by going to the project settings and its input settings and added a new action mapping sprint. Then we moved on to the blueprint of our player character and made 2 floor variables that store normal walking speed and running speed. Then I set the running speed higher than the walking speed. Inside of the event graph, we added sprint input action and set the max walking speed of the character movement to the value of running speed if the sprint button is pressed. And when the button is released, the max walk speed is set to the value of the walk speed variable. And here we go. The player can sprint now. Later on, I made a bool variable is running to store whether the player is sprinting or not, in order for implementing the next action, crouch. I referenced the tutorials from the same channel. Thank you so much. Adding crouch input, set the max walking speed to the half of walking speed when the crouching button is pressed. It's mostly the same process as the sprinting tutorial. The difference was to add a timeline to create a smooth crouch transition. Inside the timeline, we created a float crouch track and then set the length of this timeline, which is 0.25 in this case. Afterwards, we created 2 dots and set the first dot to time 0 and the value 0, and the second dot to the same value as length and the value to 1. Later on, we went to the viewport and copied the half-height value of the player character's capsule component. And in the event graph, we dragged the capsule component and connected to the set its half-height value with the crouch transition timeline. And then we created the love function and connected the crouch value from the timeline and the alpha. We pasted the value of the current half-height to the A value, then set the B value to the value half of the current half-height. And finally, connected the return value to the value of the set half-height of the capsule. Now the crouch action is made, but currently, if the player presses the sprint key while crouching, the player sprints in the crouching form, which is not expected. So I added a bool variable is crouching and branch statement after the sprint input is pressed, and only change walk speed if the player is not crouching. Then I put the previously made is sprinting variable to the crouch action to set is sprinting to false since the player is no longer sprinting. And here we go. Now the character can both sprint and crouch. Thank you so much for watching. I am planning to upload content more than devlogs including in tutorials or past book showcases, so feel free to check them once they're out. For the next Survival Island devlog episode, I'll get in touch with user interfaces. See you next time. Peace.